Dear friends, peace to all of us. It's with peace and joy that we meet here today and we find ourselves in the blessings of a search. The search for the company of Christ through a great friend, Chico Xavier, a friend of Jesus, a friend of humanity, a selfless apostle that is, who is, for all of us, a bridge towards the light and a bridge towards the new era. We go through difficult days, struggling a lot, both on the inside and outside. We struggle with the difficulties of anxiety, panic, and depression. We also face the hardships of loneliness, the anguish in front of the body's fragility, and in the learning process of life, sickness many times seeks us with difficult lessons. And it is this search for health that compels us here and now to stop and reread Francisco Cândido Xavier's work. We seek and we want health, health that emerges from our selfless friend's contribution of light. Chico says that no one can go back and create a new beginning, but anyone can start over and create a new end. There is no help without acceptance of our own humanity. There is no help if we don't discover that we must learn how to carry the burden of fragility and understand that we are here on earth searching for improvement, still very, very far from perfection. And if we are in search of improvement, then health resides in humanity that accepts itself and learns through the art of starting over, the overcoming of tears, making it capable of looking at the infinite reflection of the starry sky. Chico Xavier, in his philosophy of starting over, dialogues with the poetics of Cora Coralina, who says, recreate your life, always, and always remove the stones laid in your path, and then plant roses and create sweetness. Start over. There's no help in the idolatry of perfection, in the pride of omnipotence, in the vain desire for a life without limits, without fragility. But one must learn to live with the fragility of the body, with the fragility of the world that is starting over and over again in search of paths. In order to bring us closer to Francisco Cândido Xavier's work, we will look here today seeking some depictions. The servant of humanity, the friend of Jesus, once, in an interview, synthesized his philosophy of life in a single wish. He said that if he had the authority, he would write a poster to be placed at the entrance of every village, every community, every city, with the lesson of the love of Jesus, love of one another. He synthesized his philosophy of the way to produce life and health to always love. To love always was the keynote of a selfless existence of learning. By a very young age, he experienced the pain of having to take care of his family and taking care of his sick nephew and his sister in law. He learned a lot. José was gone. He took care of everyone. Jenny fell ill in a crisis, an obsessive outbreak, a process of madness. He who had healed so many humbly found himself forced to resort to the benefits of medicine, and then she was hospitalized. Visiting her, he finds her in the courtyard with 300 women, crying before the pains of the hospice, mistreated, sad, and suffering bodies, cry copiously. Emmanuel then appears and asks, "Why do you cry?" And he says, "Don't you see? It's my sister." Emmanuel then, educating for love without borders, calls his attention, saying, "Chico, the Xavier pain is not bigger than the Almeida pain, than the Silva pain, than the pain of the whole family before there were our sisters. And you do not cry then. If you want to serve, wipe the tears and take care of the little one that is waiting for your affection." This is a lesson that is the foundation of Chico Xavier's life. Fraternity without borders. We could then say that Chico is an anticipation of a character that will later appear in the novel Sleepwalking Land by Mia Couto. The old man dedicated his patience in paternal maternity without ever escaping his tenderness. Or we could even say that Francisco Cândido Xavier is the living expression of the word created by Guimarães Rosa, which we translated as fraternidness, a fraternity without effort or struggle that flows and blooms spontaneously. The dear friend of Jesus, the Apostle Chico Xavier, was once asked what is his most beautiful lesson. And he recalled the old days when he was waiting on a bus that would come from Parque das Américas to downtown. And it was the last day to pay the promissory notes that were due. That bus was his last chance to arrive downtown before 3. The bus comes slowly, and he's getting ready to get on the bus when a dirty child alone comes screaming, "Uncle Chico, Uncle Chico." He finds himself in a dilemma to take care of himself or wait and see. But this child could be suffering with sick parents with some difficulty. He forgets about himself and waits for the child that arrives gasping, without air, suffering. And he asks, "My son, what do you want?" The child answers, "Uncle Chico, sir, would you give me a kiss?" He says this was the most, the moment, the most important moment of his life. And it is this day that portrays who Chico Xavier is in his fertile work that addresses science, philosophy, and religion, things that help us to live Spiritism as a doctrine of improvement and frees us from the shadowy past and opens the windows to the immensity of stellar life. But above all, he is our Uncle Chico, welcoming with tenderness and affection. And we will see in his work a very, very important thing for you, for me, for all of us, and for humanity: the health disease process in Francisco Cândido Xavier's work. The book The Comforter brings a fascinating question. A question that is both curiosity, but that is also inquiry in the pain of many tears from all of us. In light of current medical efforts, how should we consider health? What is health for the spiritual plane? Is it the same as what the medical field establishes? Emmanuel then answers, for man on earth, health may mean the perfect balance of the material organs. To a spiritual plane, however, health is the perfect harmony of the soul, to obtain which, many times, the precious contribution of earthly willness and transitory deficiencies is needed. In the view of Francisco Cândido Xavier's work, health and disease is not a fact that can be perceived as restricted to the body and its organs. It is primarily a process of the spirit and portrays the dialectic of balance and imbalance in our process of improvement. And in that sense, Emmanuel explains disease is the first merciful divine intervention fostering change, transformation, and the attainment of balance. Would Chico's definition be alienated from scientific knowledge and only restricted to the contribution of faith? It's not quite like that. Michel Foucault, in his book The Birth of the Clinic, shows the limitations of medicine that restricts diagnosis to the body and to geographically located lesions, signs, and symptoms that reflect damages caused by an external agent. During this process, science notes the work of Canguilhem in On the Normal and the Pathological, that thinks very close to Emmanuel's contribution when he defines that scientific medicine that sees disease and health restricted to the body and organs has silenced a very powerful source of cure and healing that is vitalism, that perceived health and disease as ways of living life, as ways of living life. A way of living balance and imbalance, learning, renewal, the spirit that overcomes limitations, conquering life. And this leads us to Pasquero, an Argentinian homeopath who translated Hahnemann, that previously had defined in paragraph 9 of the Organon of the Healing Art that health was a way to have power and fulfill the self goals of existence, defined in deep harmony with Emmanuel's thought that health disease is a path that goes from infantile selfishness to adult altruism. Health then starts to be perceived as a fact of the spirit that in the book Thought and Life, Emmanuel will tell us only the right feeling can outline the thought, without which the soul withers by lacking inner balance. Inner balance is the fertile soil of the power of life where health lives, and unbalance are the idiosyncrasies of the spirit and the limitations of its process of self construction, of self improvement, which leads it to experience damages in itself that are reflexes of the inner difficulties, but also obstacles that provokes and creates growth. And he then, in the message infirmity of the same book, Thought and Life, will define the somber thought sickens the body, sickens the healthy body, and aggravates a sick body. We must then understand that the laws of love, and this will be a book by Francisco Cândido Xavier that will visit and show the karmic process of the imbalance that reflects in the body, whose experience of limitation and tears provides pedagogical experiences in the search for health that is always the conquest of balance. Décio Iandoli, by studying the book Evolution in Two Words with great deal of expertise and ownership as the consistent researcher and selfless spiritist that he is, will bring us a contribution speaking of Chico's work in the clarification of the etiology and pathogenesis of cancer. André Luiz, in the book Evolution in Two Words, defines cancer as the process of imbalance in the field of love for the other, which in repeated lives causes a frayed spirit that becomes worn out and then needs to be taken in the madness of the mechanisms of a mind that does not have autonomy yet, but that cannot stand the danger of dilution. So we begin to see that Chico's work dialogues with knowledge, because Freud had already affirmed that whoever loves suffers, whoever does not love gets sick. He had already said that only love is a civilizing factor capable of making humanity evolve and balance itself, because it transforms selfishness into altruism. Love, as the philosopher Maturana affirms, is our welcoming soil. And this leads us to discuss health and disease, searching Chico's work and Paulo Esteves, who already in the preface we read that without cooperation there could be no love, and love is the breath of God that balances the universe. So we discover then that for Chico Xavier's work, as health is balance and illness seeks healing in the rebalance, that we are in the field of science and love. We get sick because of difficulties to experience fraternal love. But fraternal love also heals us. And it is with great encouragement that we go to the book Courage, where in the message when boredom appears, the benefactor Emmanuel affirms, when boredom seeks you, go to the school of charity. It will awaken you to the pure joys of goodness and will speak light into your heart, freeing you from the darkness that usually descends on empty hours. Illness, the body on the path of a process, and it is a process that is imminent to the struggles of our improvement, of our inner reform. And therefore, it is a theme that directly or indirectly reflects the problems of love, of self love of others, and of love of God, of love. In the book, Our Daily Bread, we'll find a recipe for the process of healing when we see in health and illness the problems of balance, and in the learning of love, of intimate reformation, of the search for the light. In the message 158 entitled Internal Government, it ends with a recipe from Emmanuel. The problems of life, the struggles of the human heart have one answer, and it has also a demand that is a matter of firm will towards yourself and goodwill towards others. Of firm will towards oneself and goodwill towards others. We therefore need to learn that many times we see illness as a difficulty of the planet, and the body translates the reality of the planet. But above all, the problem of illness is a dialogue of the human heart that is on the evolutionary path of improvement, in search of a new way of being and living. To understand how much the work of Chico Xavier teaches us in the field of love, of health and disease, it is very, very productive to walk through the lessons. There are there in the story of Alcione in the book Renuncia or Denunciation, where Emmanuel, in many moments, allows us to be in dialogue with life, overcoming the deficiencies that we have in our daily lives to achieve balance or to overcome the imbalance and experience a superior moment of peace and the blessing of serenity, self acceptance, resignation, and active work for the good. There is a moment when this scene in the novel allows us to see Cirilo going through a stroke, a sudden increase in blood pressure. Just a sudden increase in blood pressure. Then, outraged with the reality that mistreated him, he falls and disincarnates. Could we say it was an illness and death, the imbalance revolt? Yes, an imbalance in the capacity to tolerate reality. But we need to think about our deficiencies, discovering ways to heal and to manage life with balance. And so Emmanuel comments that he still did not know how to give to Jesus situations without remedy in the world. We need goodwill and firm will to manage life with persevering work. But we need, in the face of what we have no control over, and the mishaps of fate, we need active faith handling, handing over the hopeless situations in the world to Jesus. At the same moment, Beatriz Alciune's sister, said that life would be impossible. Many problems awaited her, and she discovered her wicked mother incapable of the worthy act of renunciation with tenebrous crimes. And she said, I won't be able to live. The burden is too heavy. Reality weighs, assaults me. It seems that I can't walk with balance. Alcione answers, it is because you dare to face the pains of the world without grace. In Chico Xavier's work, balancing, rebalancing, achieving health, it is also an encounter with Jesus, where we learn to hand over to Him the hopeless situations in the world, and where we face, hand in hand with Him, the experiences of the struggle in the karmic process, day by day in our existence on earth. Jesus, the sublime friend. There is a tale from the Jewish culture about the New Year, which many times we ask for light because the New Year that hasn't been written yet is nothing but darkness. And the wise Jews said, do not ask for light, dive into the darkness, but dive placing your hand in God's hand, and thus you have a safe path, even if unknown. It is necessary to learn in sickness and in health to discover the power of healing, that is the company of Christ. Because sickness on earth is still an inevitable process. There's imbalance in a karma that cries for our attention, which will later inspire the ideas of Padre Damiano from the same book. The incurable disease, Madalena, is a blessed outlet for our imperfections. So then, sickness is no longer wretched, no longer a punishment. It is also a work of mercy, even though it's still a form of unbalancing. It's the outlet for our imperfections, a path that grants us continuous learning. We must then renew our look on life and learn to love and forgive, to cultivate faith and hope, a path in the company of Christ. And at the end of the book, it states, if needed, ask door to door for bread in the body, but hate no one, because despair will keep you shackled in the mire of the world. Despair, sorrow, resentment, anger, anxiety, and fear enslaves us to the mire of the world, to the imbalances that are inherent in the world, and we need the improvement. Since balance is a process that involves the change of the spirit, we could say that the conquest of health is very far away. Balance in the economy of life still seems inaccessible. The Spiritist doctrine in Chico's thought brings us a new encouragement. Also here, Chico states in the book Chico Xavier Só Mediunidade, not available in English but freely translated here as simply mediumship by Carlos Pacelli. It's his thought that our friend's abnegation register. The medium without charity has no rear guard. This is not a lesson only for mediumship. We do not achieve balance in the immediate of our evolutionary process. In the short term, we are far from balance in our immediate struggles of life. We still have weaknesses. We still have difficulties in the way of being. We're anxious and intemperate. We desire forgiveness, but we still find it difficult to silence the hurts and resentments that are necessary in the process of improvement. And when we think of balance, we are thinking of the economy of our mental forces in the struggles that allow us to perceive ourselves as worthy of having strength and to move forward. And charity ends up changing our image because the look of gratitude from the other who is helped allows me to perceive a heart filled with the power of life, and above all, a heart in need of life itself. So, we have important lessons in Chico Xavier's work about health and illness. But we also have countless lessons about health and illness in Chico Xavier's life. He taught us how to deal with illness and how to build a life of power and health, even in the midst of the whirlwinds of hard trials among tears, not only in the writings, almost as from a bridge standing high and allowing us access to higher knowledge. He has also taught us a lot simply by living. Chico had a posture in the face of illness. He had a way of dealing with his pains, with his illness. In the face of each of those illnesses, he will ask, what does this illness want to teach me? What has this illness come to teach me? Then he understood that the meaning of illness was not punitive, it was not castration, and it was not an inhibition of life. There was a meaning in the pain and limitation of the disease that was pedagogical, a proposition to overcome, a lesson that allows us to conquer a higher level of balance and freedom. Many times we seek a miracle, but we run away from what the disease wants to teach us. And it teaches lessons of serenity, acceptance, and patience. It shapes our insight on our dreams, reminds us of our humbleness, the blessings of love, and shows us the benefits of comfort. So, in the face of illness, if healing is a path, and if healing occurs on the path of those who learn how to love, forgive, serve, and wait with faith, it is necessary to be attentive to the possibilities of learning, to the many lessons that we learn from life in such moments of pain. Michel Foucault speaks about the dictatorship of happiness. And In fact, the dictatorship of suffering does not fit in life, but it is very difficult to understand humanity that does not perceive, and this is what he talks about in his research, that we live in a world of joy and sadness, that we need to learn how to live joy with sobriety and fraternity, as well as manage with resignation and patience some moments of pain. It is not possible to idolize happiness as if it were possible a world without the experience of such difficulties that work by educating our heart. We need to be careful. We need to seek help and relief, but we also need to cultivate in ourselves a deeper understanding that in suffering, in illness, in the ordeal of balancing the organic body, we're living a call of life for rebalancing. Chico Xavier was always someone who was very humble in his ability to write about the respect of all health resources that medicine provided him. But once bedridden and ill, his friends insisted that he sought the blessed help of medicine. He gets up and says, "Let's go. But first, I want the blessing of the medicine of our doctrine," and asks them to give him a pass, a spiritual pass. We are talking about the fact that many times the heart does not perceive that it is necessary to conjugate in the work of health and in the fight to overcome the disease the resources of a medicine that is both relief and aid, with the blessings of faith that renews our energies and changes our outlook. But mainly, it is necessary to activate this dialogue with the gospel that re educates our heart. There's work for us to do, a work of acceptance of the experience through pain and blessing of the possibility to perceive our heart towards the path of improvement. As Guimarães Rosa states in the book Grande Sertão Veredas, also translated in English as The Devil to Pay the Backlands, there's no devil. If he exists, then also exists the human man crossing. What we are studying today is health disease on the path of improvement, in the process of the human heart's struggles of imperfection to conquer the light. And Chico, again as a bridge to the light, calls us to love. The acceptance of the gospel as intimate education and work of transformation of our outlook, but also of our attitudes. We chose, in order for us to realize the process of cure in the gospel, a paradigmatic message, a message that works as an example of the change of our outlook in the face of life. We need to understand that health is the soul's balance, and that the soul gets sick when it is unbalanced. But that in order for it to rebalance itself on the path of a firm will towards itself and goodwill towards others, it will live step by step the art of starting over. And the art of starting over is the art of overcoming oneself, of getting up, shaking off the dust, turning around, moving forward, always learning and discovering the spring blessings of love, the liberating fertility of forgiveness. In Mei Mei's message, joy is a typical example of the process of pain experienced beyond the madness of imbalance, albeit as a space for learning and change, where the change of our outlook allows one to transform one's own reality. The message of Mei Mei through Francisco Cândido Xavier says, joy is the song of the hours with which God caresses you through your passage in this world. Everywhere flowers bloom by nature's smile, and the wind brushes the weeds of the field with lullabies. Water from the fountain is liquefied affection and the heart of the earth, and the grain of sand itself, filled with the sun, is a message of joy speaking to you from the ground. Do not allow your difficulty to become intoxicated sadness unto others. Even if everything seems to conspire against the happiness you expect, raise your eyes to the laughing face of life that surrounds you and spread joy wherever you go. Bless and help always, even if in tears. The rose perfumes under the thorn's claw, and the dawn generously awaits for the night to cease, to renew themselves daily in a feast of love and light. This message teaches a lot because it changes the way we look at reality. With Chico, we learn to look at life seeking the beautiful, the fair, the encouragement from the nature that welcomes us. And we also begin to see in the difficulty, in the struggle, in the tears, the lesson that educates us, the opportunity for growth, the call for change. This leads us to health because health is also an overcoming of the human condition of victim, so that we become in life the master of ourselves, the protagonist, the creator of generous acts that welcome peace. Pope Francis studied the healing process in a homily, the homily for the canonization of Sister Dulce. And his contribution is in the same sense of our conversation. He studied the healing process in the episode of the healing of the 10 lepers, in Jesus' healing of the 10 lepers. And he said that the first act of healing asks to invoke, to ask. I need to recognize my difficulty. I need to be aware of my need and humbly seek help in life. Then there is a cry, take care of me. But he said that the healing happened on the path, on the journey. It is a process of a step by step path where we work and overcome our difficulties, receiving help from the other, but also living in a different way to remove the gears of our heart that sustains the imbalance, that is always linked to parasitism, victimization, hatred, sorrow, resentment, irritation, anxiety, all the defects that keep me in the inferiority mark of my own imperfection. As I walk, I move forward. But he said, only one of the 10 lepers truly healed. The one who returns to say thank you. So it is necessary to understand that the process of existing is the process of starting over. That's a form of art of overcoming oneself. But it's not a process of idealization of life where the new beginning and the path exists in the condition of a victim waiting for the merciful help from somewhere else. It is also someone who is grateful for the support that re-educates and sustains us. And in gratitude, he starts to recognize a new moment, a moment of serving and of contributing to life by giving and giving himself health and disease in the work of Francisco Cândido Xavier. Healing as a path. Healing is not a benefit of a grace anymore, or a miracle, or a gifted fact alienated to one's own effort. It is, above all, a process of conquest, of growth and improvement. We are unfinished works. We are on the path, always learning. Without cooperation, there could be no love. And love is the breath of God that balances the universe. There is a call in the lesson of Emmanuel for love as a source of balance and healing, as a path to a new life which allows us to come out of ourselves and discover that life needs to be reinvented. The gospel of Jesus is an invitation to a new life, for a new humanity, for the blessing of a love that enables us to see in tears the opportunity to reflect the starry sky. In a laughter, create a bridge that enables us to go towards the encounter with the another person, so that our joy fertilizes other hearts, sowing the desire to live and move forward. Is it possible to heal with faith alone? Are the healings of Christ unconnected to our hearts? We have today one certainty. Love heals. Love heals as a path that educates us to generosity, to self-acceptance, to persevering work, to humility that connects us with our Father's forces, and then allows us to be another son on the journey. Many lessons, many lessons. Adelino da Silveira defined once that the crowd that searches for Francisco Cândido Xavier misses Jesus. And in this moment of learning and reflection, I say with him, what a truth, my brother. But it is also true that today we search for Jesus because we miss Chico. Because Chico is above all the bridge to the light that taught us the blessing of tenderness as a path to meet a new destiny, the destiny of a humanity that is peaceful, welcoming, healthy. Peace to all of us. Peace in Jesus, who blesses our hearts and allows us to always continue in the company of Jesus and Chico, and together in the certainty that we can spring our paths, learning this way of living, a way of living softly in the affection of the greatest love. May Jesus bless us all.